A very good evening to one and all present. For the 79th session of the study circle, we have Mr. Rana Mukherjee, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, to speak on the topic, the COVID orphans, a harsh reality with challenges ahead. I now invite Mr. Om Prakash to give a welcome address and a brief introduction of the speaker.
It's a very pleasant to have a session on one of the important topics of the present day. As you all aware, COVID had taken a very big toll on the humankind. We had initially started saying that it has brought about a lot of challenges. Today we are in a situation that it is not only the question of challenges the humankind had been put to, it is more than that. The number of sufferings which the people had undergone and continue to undergo because of the COVID situation is known to one and everyone. This COVID challenges have brought into stark reality of various difficulties which we are facing. And this has in fact put the mankind into a situation of completely restrained to four walls. Now, beyond that, the human compassion has been put to challenge, where we are in a situation not able to share with people of the tough times which we undergo, of the hardships which we face. And this, to some extent, is only the external view of it. There is something which happens inertly, which over the period of time is going to bring in more challenges for the humankind. Over the time, when we get over this COVID situation, we win over this virus pandemic situation and come to normal life, there would be still a very stark reality as to the difficulties faced by the humankind. In one situation would be the topic which we are going to discuss today. The post-COVID situation will be a real challenge to the children who are being orphaned because of losing either of the parents or both of them. And this is a real challenge which we have to stand up to and work in a manner that this future generation is really taken care of in a better manner. So in this concept, today we have the topic to discussion, and we have one of the eminent speakers before us. Mr. Rana Mukherjee, a designated senior advocate who practices in Supreme Court, is a very known figure in the Delhi circles. And of course, I need to also say that for the study circle, he is very well known to us, being personally associated with many of our core team, as well as introduced to our members in his earlier session on the mystics of contempt jurisdiction, which he had delivered in the last year. With that, many of us are well aware of the Mr. Rana Mukherjee, and I need to only tell you that today he is one of the most sought after persons as far as Supreme Court proceedings are concerned. We would have heard about senior advocates being very busy running about with various briefs and all. He had been through all those things. He had been one of the successful lawyers on the commercial litigation in Supreme Court. I am not talking about that situation. Today, he is being sought after in many cases to give his views, and he has offered himself to work with the amicus in Supreme Court on very sensitive issues, including the suo motu proceedings in the COVID situation. With these backgrounds on this wonderful topic, and give us a lot of insights in a manner that we need to have to raise to the occasion and see that we also stand in our way to help whatever has to be done for the next generation to have a better human life. With these few words, I welcome all the participants. I welcome Sri Rana Mukherjee, the senior advocate. Sir, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prakash and Ritika. Good evening and vanakkam. And see, normally one would smile, but these are very hard times. I hope everybody is taking care. I personally, on a personal level, I must tell you that we've never had such a situation where, last year was like the lockdown happened and it all came and people were generally locked up at home. It was a novel kind of thing. People were discovering themselves at home. People went by. By the end of the year, we realized that something has stabilized and we were getting back a little bit on our feet. But little did we realize that, like an untamed horse, our society has this habit of, crossing apart and jump out of the window. And that is what precisely happened from January onwards, including political parties, who are the leaders. They let their hair loose. And we had a situation where people were congregating all over, for whatever reason. I'm not blaming any political party. Every state has its own problem. Every state was driven by its own necessity of holding, let us say, rallies or dharnas or, some congregation somewhere. And before long, we realized the second phase just came rushing on our heads. And what is the second phase of the COVID? The second phase of the COVID is something which even the doctors were warning us, but to be very fair to them, I don't think they had also envisaged that it would come in such a big wave. And the wave was such that, I will tell you personally, in our Supreme Court at least, and Delhi High Court, we've lost not less than 80 advocates, and some of whom are just very young, 80, some are 30, 25, 30. And it's shocking. They go to the hospital, second, third day they die. Reasons are not described. And the protocol that is followed, people are just taken to the crematorium, cremated. Now, while going through this process, I suddenly realized that what about orphans? And there were two messages which came to my phone for adoption of a girl child who had lost her parents. Now, I found that very strange. How can someone suddenly put up a girl child for adoption? I mean, isn't there a law governing this? And that really put my antennas up. I immediately contacted through someone, the chairman of the Juvenile Justice Committee, and I sent a little message. The message was very terse, which is part of my notes, which will be circulated. In that, I tried to flag these issues of what happens to these orphan kids in an urban setup. I will come to the rural setup later on. I'll also talk in the last segment. I'll also talk of a very interesting concept that I think should also be probed. What about orphan parents? You see, all these acts take care of orphan children. There are Juvenile Justice Act, there's a Child Protection Act, there's a Commission for Child Protection, then there's the Right to Free Education Act. So this is one part of our legal setup which takes care of children. Now, I'll also address the lacuna in the law with regard to orphan parents. The concept, normally when we talk of orphans, we talk of children. But this is a concept which is internationally now being recognized to be a major problem which needs to be settled down. Nevertheless, we come back to the topic. Then I realized that the Supreme Court had this suo motu case pending since last year. And the name of the case was Contagion of COVID-19 Virus in Children Protection Homes. Now, while doing so, I came across a very interesting quote by Nelson Mandela. He had said long back that there can be no revelation of a society's soul than the way it treats its children. We all say children are the next generation. We all say they'll flower into something good. But what do we do as a society? Now, as a matter of fact, there's an affidavit filed in this case, and you'll find the startling figures of which are discovered. There's so many undiscovered, so many the commission does not know. The government has come out with a total of 9346 children today recorded till about last Monday. 9346 of which abandoned 140. Children orphans are 1742. And who have lost either parents are 7464 in either categories. Now look at the enormity of the situation. We are talking of mostly urban and semi-urban. I do not know whether they have collated data from the rural sectors. So that's another problem. Now the immediate attendant problem is A. In urban setup, most of I'll take Delhi as an example. Even Chennai is same. People migrate to work. There are huge conglomerates where people are working. Husband, wife, both are working. And in at least 8 or 10 cases that I personally know of, the husband falls ill or the wife falls ill. She goes to the hospital. Within 2 days, the husband also or the wife also is taken to the hospital and is in critical care. The husband, by either of them die, the other one does not know, and the other one dies. And they have infants of, let us say, ranging from 1.5 to 2 years or even lesser, and the elder one would be some 4 or 5 years, who have not yet got the feel of the parents. You know, that they call the heartbeat. The heartbeat of a child reflects or resonates within the heartbeat of the mother or the father, more the mother. So what do these children do? Now we know as a matter of fact that today, even if you open your phones, it has to be through some secret code, either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whichever code we put. So they're all locked. Documents, as we find, are all kept in DigiLockers today. Now, what does an infant who otherwise would be well off if the parents would have been alive? Parents who have bought apartments either on EMIs or on on payment of cash down. So there's some apartment somewhere kept. Suddenly they lose total support. Now we have cases where even the relatives are not willing to come forward to take charge of such children, because A, the fear of the virus, B, the fear of the unknown, where they are suddenly thrust upon with these children of their brother, sister, or cousin, or someone else, and they do not know what liability there is. Now these such nuclear families today also keep every document either kept in a DigiLocker or in a locker physically in a bank. Very few of them keep in their physical possession. So the immediate problem that was troubling me was when I told the Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, he's very adept at handling all these matters. He does a very thorough research, and he's an amicus in very many matters. A very soft gentleman, very competent advocate. So I told him, how do you forget people who are totally abandoned, or orphans without any, let us say, link or in the society, in the sense that you do not know from where they come. They are not living in a secure apartment environment. So how do you do? First, let us eliminate the urban children. How do you do it? Now, I was just thinking aloud yesterday. I thought if you have to access these documents for the benefit of the children, because these children, I'll come to the foster home care and everything later on. These children may not technically need that kind of care because there would be some property over their heads. They just need someone to take charge of them. School education, insurance policies, bank account, succession. All these will have to be sorted out, for which the Guardianship Act provides for something. The Juvenile Justice Act section 214 says child in need and protection. So how do you get all of them together for the first segment of the urban kids who otherwise are financially stable, but that stability is unknown to the world at large, even to them, because they are unaware of it. All of a sudden the world comes crashing down. They have lost their parents. They have maybe grandparents or someone or some relatives. Unfortunately, some of them can also turn out to be which does not sound good, sharks. Now, for example, access to a locker in a bank, there might be jewelry kept there. Who accounts for all of this? How do these orphans or kids who have lost one parent and the other parent is also in hospital be taken care of immediately by the society, if not then by the government? So in doing so, we found that the government has now come up with a kind of a pro-tem rehabilitation package. The central government has said that let us have from the PM Cares Fund, each of such child who has been orphaned, a sum of rupees 10 or 18 lakhs will be kept in a fixed deposit. The proceeds of every month will be credited to their account for their care, either through a guardian or through a court. When they turn 18, because the child as defined under Juvenile Justice Act and the POCSO Act means a child below 18, would be entitled to the entire sum of money as if it was their own. Now, I find from an affidavit filed by the state of Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Karnataka, that Tamil Nadu has also, in addition to the PM Cares Fund relief, has also offered a sum of rupees 3 lakhs per child up till the age of 18. So that is in addition to that amount which will be put in by the PM Cares Fund. But the immediate problem today is how do we retrieve these properties, insurance policies? Now, lack of death certificate is one major issue which we are facing here, at least in Delhi and the NCR. Half the time they are fudging records. Bodies are taken to the crematorium. They are killed, they say some respiratory disease. Insurance company are not willing to accept those. IRD has given a directive that you have to honor such deaths during this time of pandemic and treat it as if it is covered under insurance policy. But then, does a child embark upon long-term litigation? You know how insurance policies are, how they are dealt with by the insurance company. Even for motor accidents claim, the claim is finally settled in the Supreme Court after 10, 12, 14 years, by which time that child would have become a major. The other is education. We find at least in 2 schools in Delhi have offered free education of their, if such a child is in their school. One is an international school and one is a private school, till they pass class 12. So these are little areas of addressing problems for rehabilitation. The other issue is who would take care of such children? Would the foster care home or the child care home address these issues? Can they really step in place of parents? Would adoption help? Now, how do you take a family where there's 2 male children or 2 female infants, or 1 male, 1 female? How do you tear them apart and give them in adoption to 2 different parents? Law actually is blind to all this. You know, our adoption laws also, under the Hindu Adoption Act or Juvenile Justice Act, where you have this adoption scheme, we haven't been confronted with this kind of enormity. It's like a whirlpool. I mean, every day there are so many children, some maybe at the age of 14, 15, who are little aware of certain facts, that yes, this is our property or this is that, and there's some insurance policy. But I am sure in our Indian household, parents do not discuss their savings or their what is it called, the backup that they provide for the kids. They give them a good school, they get a good car, they take them to malls. So the children are happy, the parents are happy, the children are happy. They buy them laptops, they buy them good phones. But those are all in the past. How does that child or those children of a secure family now take the step ahead? Now, my junior associate who was actually helping me with the note, he has made a very pertinent remark in the note. He says, what do in future we do about these situations? It might come about now that we're aware, and we are more aware than what our previous generations were. We are more tech savvy, we know how to store documents. So she says that, why don't parents today, as a matter of per necessity, make a will in advance and keep updating the will, so that once you have the will, at least it is collated in one place, and it will be easy for people to break through this chain of locking of devices to find out actually whether the child really needs to go like a totally orphan child to a foster home, or can be taken care of within his or her own environment, which is very essential. So there can be the BAL, what is that BAL, whatever that body is, I'll just give you the name. They have put up on the portals, calling for relatives to come and put forth their claims whether they can take care of such children. But that is also, conditional upon people trying to come forward and taking, according to the further liability. A family might have 2 or 3 children of their own. How do they take additional liability? The old days of joint family system is totally broken today. Today, we are all a very selfish lot. We live for ourselves, for our family. And so these are challenges which we'll have to face as a society. So one is the government agencies working, and as we find from these affidavits filed, that they are working in tandem to bring about some kind of sanctity or sanity to this madness which is going on in society, of people just running helter-skelter, A, to save their own lives, B, if surviving, then are they surviving with a healthy mind and body, or which the children will any case be affected? And if they really perish, then how do the children get back on the feet, which is a major question which is to be addressed by the central government and the state government. Now, we have juvenile justice boards. Technically, when a person talks of juvenile justice, you talk of child who's in conflict with law. But the Juvenile Justice Act is actually very broad-based. If you look at, let us take the act for a minute. If you take section 214, abandoned child is defined under 2 months. 214 is child in need of care and protection. So this is independent of a child of 213 in conflict with law. So this act takes care of such children who are in need of care and protection. There are children welfare officers, children's court, children care institutions which are supposed to be set up, though they are not in very good shape, and foster home and foster care. Now, if you remember that foster home in Bihar, where the person handling the foster is a private institution, and he was charged with sexual abuse, he was charged with pedophile, and etc., etc. So these are the other problems which society will have to deal with. I mean, not everything. If I say that T02 invites a death penalty, it does not mean that murders will stop happening. So as a society, how do we rise? So we have to, according to me, empower the NGOs to come forward with viable schemes. A, for detention of such children within their own homes and not go to adopted homes. B, if adopted, how do you have children's welfare officer actually keeping a check on what are the kids being made to do? Whether Section 12 of the Right to Education Act is being enforced and such children are not abandoned in totality. You see, there are many cases where children are adopted, but they are not given the same care as their own blood children would be given. Now, this is one part of the urban setup. So we can also, the government can also, for example, if they're not finding records, can through Aadhaar or through the PAN card, at least link up such names and see what are the properties where the balance sheets would be the income tax department. Now, one argument would be that, see, Aadhaar is, then it becomes very inclusive. But what does this child do? That child does not even know anything from Adams. He or she has no idea of what the parents have done for them. They were having a very cushy life, a nice life. And an infant of, let us say, 2 or 1.5, what will he or she know? They don't even know the difference between, apart from the mother's heartbeat, even the father, only when he touches, the child gets to relate to the father. It's all the mother, and mother. That's how society, how generations have evolved. So now this Aadhaar linkage and linkage, income tax returns, because I'm still stuck with the urban conglomerate. Urban people assume that 90 or 70% of them would be working, would have been filing income taxes. So there's some tracing of records through which properties can be retrieved and saved. The government would have to take it upon itself, according to me, to ensure that insurance policies are honored. And these children are not made to run like a normal citizen would be for getting back what they should from the insurance companies. Insofar as education is concerned, how does the government take care? Now the central government has offered for such children who actually do not know what the future holds, because some might be in a public school where the monthly fees must be some 3 lakh, 4 lakh, 5 lakh a month. So then they have offered that such children can also be accommodated in the villages. Now, waiver of a school fees, if the National Disaster Management Act is to be taken, and the central government through the state governments can impose such a condition, that of such case, school fees will not be charged. It is a point to be probed, and we can ponder over this issue as a society and put pressure on the governments to do so. Now, let us come to semi-urban areas. How do the semi-urban areas, where there's some kind of less cold survival instincts among people. People go out in the evening, meet their friends, they take a scooter and go out, which is lacking in an urban setup. You come in a apartment block which is some 18 floors or something, you somehow manage to get into your house at 9 o'clock at night, leave at 7, so you don't really interact with society, apart from some RWA meetings. In a semi-urban area, it is easier to find or trace what such children would have inherited from the parents. The society there is also, according to me, I may be wrong, would be more responsive to taking care of such children till such time that someone comes and takes a claim that, okay, I can adopt her, I will be the natural guardian under the Act. So, and the economic fallout may be a bit lesser in semi-urban areas. Now, how do we take care of our rural areas? In rural areas, where are the records? Some ancestral property of some agricultural land, a person plowing the field would, in usual course, tell his wife that, "Bhai, I have so much of land. I'm with it, that is jointly owned with my brother." At the moment both of them die, either of them, the father is alive, he can still take care because it's within his knowledge. Wife would not know. Most of them are, as we call them, pardanashi even today, within their homes. So these are also areas, because I find from these affidavits, governments are very urban centric. They like to deal with properties, with issues which are all in the urban areas. The rural areas is absolutely at the backdrop of everything that they feel is very unnecessary. But the harsh reality is it hits them as hard as it hits the urban child. An orphan urban child and a rural orphan child would be equally hit by such a disaster that is happening. Now, medical care. What happens to these children who survive somehow this pandemic? What about the medical care? Who takes care? Now, I find from the Juvenile Justice Act, there are various provisions. If I can just run through them a bit for convenience of the listeners. If you can take the act, see, there's a process. Chapter 7 talks of rehabilitation and social reintegration, which is very important. Just one. Now, section 39 onwards talks of process of rehabilitation and social reintegration, which is very essential. A child would have to reintegrate it to the society. Now, can you imagine these kids who forget losing parents, a normal child? For the last 1 year and 3 months, they have had no physical school. They do not even know how their friends look like apart from on the computer. You know, the human touch is so important. A person playing in the field, a person hugging each other after scoring a goal, or a child playing with her friends and in badminton and jumping up and hitting a high five, all this has gone. So this social reintegration is also very important, apart from the sudden loss of parents. How do these children get back on the field? It's very easy to sit here and say that, no, we'll do ABCD, they'll get back on the field. No. A person of 4, 5, or 6 would still have it in the back of the mind that I had a parent I lost, or we have lost it. Or let us take it that, you're circulating, yes. And then section 40 says restoration of child in need of care and protection. So the restoration and protection of a child shall be the prime objective of any children's home specialized adoption agency. Now, I know of adoption agencies, they keep a tab wherever a child is adopted. They go to those houses and keep a check on whether the child is actually being taken care of. Because there have been very many cases earlier, including children who actually go abroad. Some of them are abused and used for domestic purposes. You know, it's almost like servants in the house. So these are, suddenly a whole, now till such time, how many orphan children did the government deal with? Now we have a total of so many. Like I said, the figure says at least 1742 orphan. It might be 2000 by the time my lecture ends. We do not know. So how does this big number be taken care of with a process where, for example, a child of 1 for the next 17 years or beyond, or a child of 10 for the next 8 years? So all this would have to be categorized in different categories, dealt with separately, because these children's homes, the juvenile homes, these are not where a healthy development of a child is actually facilitated. You have these Bal Niketans, Nari Niketans, where abandoned girl childs are taken for shelter. These are shelter homes. Now these, they give them training in craft and this, that, and the other, some education. But what about a child from a fairly decently well-settled family? They would have, the parents would have thought of some engineering college, medical, this, that, maybe lawyers. And, people talk romantically of sending when my child grows up, I'll send him or her abroad. Today, there's no distinction between a female and a male child. So the challenges ahead are so humongous that if you look at now the legal policy and framework, I'll tell you that broadly the acts which can take care. One is the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. Then there's a Guardians and Wards Act, which is called the GAWA. Then we have the Juvenile Justice Act. Then we have the Right to Children and Free Education, which is under Article 21A and 39, even an abandoned child would have a right to insist upon the government that I have a right to free education at least. Why can't they enforce this? So I don't know why is it taking the government so long. You see, giving a financial package is, I will say, a pro tempore measure. It helps in rehabilitating the child, but it is not for a long-term resettlement of the child, which is more important. That's what the Juvenile Justice Act, Section 3940 talks of. So that has to be, and then the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, like I said. So the Commission of Protection of Child Rights Act, which is governed actually under Juvenile Justice Act. So all these are acts in place. The International Convention, which is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Child, UNCRC, which is ratified by India in 1992, also requires countries to adhere to the principles that a child's interest is paramount. You see, most of these divorce cases where a husband and wife are battling in court, the court first says, no, we'll first take the paramount interest of the child. We'll see how the best development of the child is taken care of. Those principles will have to be adopted here. The courts where they appoint guardians, the guardian should be made to report back to court almost every month or every 6 months, given a statement saying that under my care, these two children are living or doing whatever they ought to do, education, etc., etc. And I have taken these steps. I have retrieved so much of their property, account for it, like a receiver under Order 47, Rule 7. You have to account for everything that you're taking charge of. Give it to the court. The court will then take, if the guardian is good, if the guardian is remiss, they will review the guardian. Because I somehow am not very comfortable with such kids being pushed to foster homes or children's homes. That can be temporary. The act is very well intentioned. The act actually, I'll tell you, in India, the act, Juvenile Justice Act actually takes care of child in conflict law. For the first time, they have to deal with this Section 214 of need and protection in its true letter and spirit. And for that, they have to involve society in general. They can make small watch groups and they can have NGOs who can come and give measures of suggestions to rehabilitate such kids. Now, if you look at the challenges of the adoption front, now adoption also, children, the problem is more with girl child. We found adoption it's a double-edged sword because the child doesn't know where she is going. These adoption homes, at least in Calcutta, I know they used to come for a friend who had adopted a girl child. They used to come every week and keep a check on the child. Such measures would have to really be enforced strictly, even for male children. We have found in so many cases when the POCSO lecture would be given, we have found a number of cases where the male child is also abused. But these are, societal awareness, awakening of the society to meet the challenges of society in large. To expect the government to do everything becomes a bit harsh. We as a society will also have to come up and give suggestions to the government, or maybe, as a group, involve ourselves in the suo motu proceeding and tell the court that here are our suggestions. This is what we should do. And a better tracking method, for instance, of how to get hold of the properties which should normally come to such kids, orphan kids. What is the next step forward? How do these orphan kids actually get back on their feet through some help through society or through the government? So therefore, guardians or some foster care is given for temporarily for some time till then other natural guardians can come up. That means guardians who can adopt, or guardians who need not adopt but keep the children under the care and supervision. Adoption may not always be necessary. Why can't the first cousin or the first brother or the first sister say that, no, I will take care of these children, and through this, and they can be made to report to court so the child is not abused. In 9 out of 10 cases, they will not abuse the child because they will take care of the children. But what happens in the case of abuse? How do we take care of those? So these are huge challenges which we as a society would have to come up, and we should make ourselves available for suggestions to the government. Because the government is a very cut and dry mechanism. they are very within the cold rooms. They think of certain things, they try to implement, then they can't even take care of whether the implementation is being done in a proper manner. So these are issues which the government through the society would have to take care of. Now, like I said, social media also, these calls are coming for adoption. My request is the moment you receive such a call from an unknown source, immediately report to the police that this kind of adoption is being offered. Please find out the source and please find out how this adoption can be made. Adoption can only be through court processes. How can it be over a phone call? I did not manage to save those 2 messages on my phone. It was startling to find out that people are adopting girl children for adoption. Under what provision of law? Who has authorized them? But who are they? Now, these are questions which leave a big question mark. So I'm back to square one on how to retrieve these properties which would help the children to come back on their feet. Now, Aadhaar card, like I said, the PAN card, the income tax returns. What if someone actually doesn't have income tax? They might be living in an urban city. Urban cities also have tolls. So these are, I do not know, it is a huge task for people to think, ponder, and suggest. If you see someone next door in trouble, please stick your neck out and help them. You see, we have all these community kitchens. We have different societies where we have been donating. We are sending food trains. But these are again temporary measures, like I said. For children who are orphaned, primarily orphaned, who've lost one parent, the other parent may be able to take care. If she or he can't, maybe the man also cannot. Then there are ways and means to adopt agencies to say that please help my child at least stand back on his or her feet. But what is the way forward next year? Now they are anticipating the 3rd wave to be hitting children now. So, we are in the midst of a really whirlpool of sad situations where the moment we take a step out from one, we are falling into another. We get out of that, we are falling into another. The lingering effect of the first remain. The lingering effect of the second, hopefully the 3rd wave will not come. But the way biology tells us that it will mutate and it will mutate till it dies a natural death. Are these children being made to be vaccinated? What is the policy for them? Well, how do these orphan children or the infants be taken care of that they are not infected again? As it is, they have lost their parents. What about medical care? Who takes care of the medical necessities? Forget the daily food, that they will take care. The government has assured that they will take care. But a concrete proposal in a holistic manner, I do not find from the affidavit of the central government of the National Child Commission, NCPRC. So, because the court has also said, please give better solutions. Now, they have also asked for regulation of medicines, this, that, and other. Special newborn care units to be set up. Pediatric intensive care units to be set up. Now, they are saying, please do. But we are almost 2.5 months into this tragic situation. What have they done? What is in place? So the figures are all there. For this, I'll read one portion of the affidavit. For this, the child, along with the guardian and any member of the family and or the school where the child is studying, shall approach the Child Welfare Committee of the district. Based on proceeding before the CWC, the child may be included in the list of children already admitted to the school under Section 12(1)(c) of the RTE Act. The school shall then follow the appropriate procedure to raise the demand for reimbursement of expenditure as per respective state RTE rules. This they could have easily issued directives that waive the fee, let the child continue education. That means they'll have to approach the Child Welfare Committee. That might take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. What does the child do in the meantime? Where does the education take him or her? Does the child now have access to computers for online education? Does the child have means of sustenance on a daily basis? Now, these recommendations which are given for child being forced to leave school, etc., all well thought of. And combating human trafficking is also provided for in this affidavit. How much of it will actually be enforced is again a matter of, we have to see as time passes us by. We have to see whether we are actually able to enforce all this. Now, insofar as the structure or the legal framework is concerned, we have everything in place. We have everything in black and white. The desirability, the willingness, and the compassion, first of the government and of the society, to now enforce all this so that the objectives of the act are met with its full force. Now, orphans can also, be led astray in a normal course, in a normal way of living. Normal child may also go astray, but the orphan without care and protection would have a greater risk of going astray. Now, again, this has to be again, proper education, proper social awareness campaigns. Everything will have to be taken care of by the government and the civil society, and a mechanism for identifying their net worth, their sustainability independent of government aid. The government aid will always be there. Their continuing education in premier educational institutions, why should they be deprived of it? Whether their estate can take care of that, are all issues which will have to be dealt with ASAP by the government and the agencies. It cannot fall in the rope kind of concept that, okay, let us wait, let us collect record, let us see what is happening. They have to do it on a war footing. So these are the challenges which these COVID orphans are faced with. The society and the government would have to respond. That is my expectation from civil society and from the government. Now, you have this youth groups also in like local clubs, etc., who are in the knowledge of very many things going on in their locality. They can also be roped in till such time that the pandemic, pandemic severity goes or stays, and then we'll have to then take the next step forward of to see whether the children who are such orphaned or who have lost at least one parent are able to continue with their usual way of life despite all difficulties. That is what the biggest challenge is. That is why this study circle, and that is why I insisted that let me do a little talk. It is not so much of a legalese talk. It is more of a social necessity talk today. And what do we do as a society? Now, let me take a step apart from this COVID orphan children. Like I mentioned at the beginning, what happens to COVID orphan parents? You see, if you remember correctly, in 2016 when the demonetization happened. So, before I come, if you remember the 2016 demonetization happened. And then, so the government would not admit. Very many parents whose children have gone abroad, and many were under the age group of 75 to 85, 90, were dependent solely on the money being sent by the children from abroad, were stuck in a situation where they could not go to the banks, physically unable to. They were left with old notes which they must have kept with themselves. And that was the first case study on orphan parents. There was a case study on orphan parents where they found that the difficulty of such parents in retrieving their own money or getting their own money to the bank to exchange it for those colorful new notes which were printed that time was addressed but was not taken care of because the government was in denial. They said, no, everything is all right. Today I know for instance, one family, there's a young advocate couple from Bihar. The mother died of the boy. He insists his agriculturist father to sell his property in Bihar and come and stay with them. He said, you've grown old, please come and stay with us, we'll take care of you. Now the husband and wife died. This rustic villager, poor gentleman, does not know anything. He does not even know that there are EMIs being paid for that flat where his son had bought. So the local area, the RWA, then got together. There's a body called KETO. They organized some immediate funding for that parent. And they're trying to locate of what is the property, what is the status. They're asking you, what is your saving? He said, I have given my savings to my son to buy this apartment. So what happens to that kind of an orphan? Who will take care of that kind of orphan? The relatives all wash their hands off. Because there must have been some problem in the native village or whatever. Now, this is the second segment where actually the government would have to really, there should be another suo motu case of orphaned parents. And how is it that their rehabilitation takes place? You know, most of private companies don't have pension schemes. They have this annuity policy. They invest their entire provident fund and gratuity, etc. in some annuity scheme. Money comes like some 500, 800, 900 rupees, and with support from their children. So there again, the government again have to formulate and reformulate. The Juvenile Justice Act will not get the Senior Citizens Act, which at times is employed for people who are thrown out of their houses. So those, whether that can be read into that act to provide life, if parents in need of care and protection, they can have a clause like that. They can stretch, or they can amend, not amend the Juvenile Justice Act. Amendment will be difficult because they're not juveniles. The child is defined. So they should have a Senior Citizens Act in that format, which will take care of such people. Now, like I said, a young couple would have had investments here, there, and everywhere. But for that parent, there will be no further investments. And the only support was cash support from their children, maybe. And even that is gone today. So how do they survive? The government will say, we cannot take care of everybody and anybody, but we are talking of a specific category of orphans. It may be a child, it may be an infant, it can also be an adult person. And we have found in very many cases that many adults are left neglected. Either they are pushed to old age homes, the old age home will take care of them, or they are left neglected in their own homes and they live in pitiable conditions. That is one category. But the category that I am talking of is where they are getting support from their children and now they are left in the lurch. So the government not actually take care of them. That is a larger question which also will have to be posed by the government, by the courts to the government if such an action comes about, or by the civil society who should now rally around such people and actually take care. So this is actually a time for reawakening of our senses. I'll tell you this 1 year, 3 months, we have realized our life is worth like this. In a snap, we go to the hospital, we are zipped up in a bag and we're dumped in that crematorium. What is the worth of our life? What is all this fighting all about? Someone gets a big car, someone gets this huge bungalow. It all goes in a snap of a finger. Therefore, our social security system has to be enforced and has to be really given more teeth. You know, we in the West and all, the social security system, the system of giving dole to old people, people who are helpless, homeless, that actually has to now be adopted here. We have a 130 crore plus population. The government, if you get elected, you jolly well have to, like they say, if you can't bite the dust, then leave it. If as the government, if you have been elected to do certain things, you have to toe that line and take care of people. That is part of our directive principles. That no one should be left neglected. Not a single person, even under Article 21. Right to life and liberty is paramount in India. But we don't enforce. Even the courts are low at times to say, how can we take care? I remember, so that will not, it's a castigation on the Supreme Court. When it was pointed out to the Supreme Court that there are people walking back to their homes from here, to villages from here, from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu, some are going to Bihar, some are going to UP, some are going to Maharashtra, vice versa, people are coming back. The government comes and makes a statement, no, nobody is walking on the streets. Despite reports and photographs, the court accepts it. So sensitivity, sensitization, even of the Supreme Court, I would say, is paramount today. Just because there is a Supreme Court, I do not assume that they have become absolutely known. They're coming from the same source. They're coming from the district court, high court, or the high court to the Supreme Court. Are they suddenly, the day they sit on the Supreme Court, do they become so wisdom-wise that they know everything? I'm sorry, no. I've been in this institution for 31 years. People have been there for more. We have seen judges, we have seen judges with total compassion. We've seen judges who are very hard. To the hard judges, I'd like to say, that why don't you look at the constitution from Article 30 to Article 50 and say that no, we have to, even from 39 onwards, you have to enforce. Yes, in some cases they do it. MC Mehta, T.N. Godabaraman, they have done. They have taken care of forests, they have taken care of wildlife, they have taken care of water. But look at the bodies floating in Ganga. What does the government do? Is in total denial. There might be children also floating in the water. Who makes these discoveries? Soon the court have taken so much of cognizance of that fact and issued show cause to each of the state government from where the bodies are going. See, why I'm diverting from the topic is I want to show that sensitivity should be a must for even government officials and the leaders. So we come back to the topic of orphans. If that is the attitude, should we not as a civil society put pressure on the government and the courts to say that you first take care of these orphan kids? It is our duty under 39. It is our duty under 20, 21 and under 20 capital leave or 21 capital leave for right to education. That you have to ensure, and if necessary, people should make contributions to ensure that such kids who are in their know are at least taken care of for the moment, apart from what the government. So therefore, this entirety of the situation demands a much closer examination, a much faster examination, a much more compassionate thought process to be there with the leaders, with the officials, and with civil society. Therefore, I think this takes care of most of it. It is more in anxiety, I must tell you. Like I said, there's no legality or legalese involved in this. It's more of a game of a mind, of your heart. If your heart beats, it should beat for the child too, who's been orphaned or who's lost their parents. If your heart beats for your own children, it should also beat a little bit for these kids. That is the theme and tenor of my suggestions to the amicus. And I'm in constant touch with him. He has given suggestions. He's asked for some little suggestions, and he's very frank and fair to accept. It's not that since he's been appointed amicus, he knows it all. He takes suggestions from everybody, and he collates everything and gives to the court. And the bench is also one which is monitoring it properly. This is headed by Justice Nageshwar Rao. And I presume that it has hit them hard, and therefore they are taking cognizance. They've issued directions on the 28th. They have told the government to respond. Monday is again being listed. So we'll get a concrete structure of whatever the government has said in this affidavit, and financial assistance and care and foster care and etc. etc. I hope they have a blueprint. I was talking about the Bal Swaraj portal. I'm sorry, I've forgotten that name. There's a portal where you can upload information with regard to such kids who are in your knowledge. And the government is supposed, the Bal Swaraj portal will take care of such children. That is what the promise is. And while doing so, the government also has to contend with the child in conflict with law. There are juveniles who are in conflict with law. So it's actually a kind of, now a whole embracing kind of situation for the first time in our country. And I only end with a hope that we will have a better society, we'll have better children for future. And we hope that these children also do not fall foul in their societal upbringing, so that we have, as we say, the next generation reflects of what we are. So those next generation of where their family ethos and values would not percolate onto them if they're not taken care of by their own family members. The society would actually have to take care and tell them this is what is expected, and this is what you have to finally give back to society, like what you got from society. I think, thank you very much. And like I said, I didn't want to really put too many sections, this and that, and the act, because the acts are all there. It is the intention, it is the willingness of civil society and the government to take care of such things so that they do not go astray, or they do not go the way of some beggary because of lack of information, lack of rehabilitation, lack of getting back what they should get from their own estate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the very wonderful insight of an essential issue to be considered with a human face. A few of our members may require some clarification, or if they want to add something, it should be fine with you, sir. To start with, I was just feeling that coming to the issue of these children's being orphaned,
Yes.
most of the things are left to the policy of the government, which we are looking at as to what the government is going to do as a step in process. As you said, some interim measures and a long-term measures, everything. The other way around is that as far as this children's protection is concerned, as you rightly point out, there are very many enactments which are there, more particularly the Juvenile Justice Act, which wanted to address to that. Now, what I was feeling is that as to the adjudication process under these laws, now once an enactment is in place, definitely judiciary has a role. Can there be a suggestion that at least now that district-wise there should be one court which will handle all these child issues? Be it any enactment, anything. So that court should also be empowered or equipped with kind of counselors or NGOs working with them and carry forward. This is what I thought I will ask you as a question.
Yes.
Is it the right way of looking
Yes,
at it?
yes. You see, Section 109. You see, under the Juvenile Justice Act, you have this district protection state child protection society and district child protection unit. And then you have the child welfare police officer and special juvenile police unit. Then you have monitoring of implementation of that. So Section 109 takes care of that. It also speaks of this Commission for Protection of Child Rights Act. That act actually gives the power to the Commission to monitor and take care. You're correct. Child-friendly courts, even under POCSO, is now being looked at by the Supreme Court. You should have that at the district level also. For being in close, or we call it closeness to the area of dispute or area of concern. So a child would therefore be monitored within their own district, physically not being removed if they're not adopted, and taken care of by proper monitoring under Section 109 of the KG Act. That is one answer. Now, how they implement it is all there in the law. And like I said, there are so many acts, there are so many sections in an act. How do they implement it? Implementation again has to be from the government and the society forcing them to. So,
can we ask the court to say that as a measure that every district there will be a separate designated court?
That amicus apparently would.
All petitions have to probably go to that court.
Yes.
Because now any district court which is designated, it handles it part of all other works. Like in the case of family court where we have got only the family court matters there.
Correct. No, they are supposed to have that. This Commission for Protection of Child as a commission is supposed to do all that. But it is not functional in most states. Even commercial courts are not functioning properly. What do you talk of these courts? I mean, that is why I'm saying the willingness of the government to do something, more so because of such children. You know, commercial matter can hang fire for 2 or 3 years. It's an economic loss. But for the child who is orphaned, who has to be taken care of, these commissions, these child-friendly courts would have to be, so that when guardians are upon, like I said, the guardians would have to be monitored, would have to report back to the court to say that they are doing all that is necessary for upbringing of the child. You're correct, absolutely correct. This, I'll put it to the amicus also as a suggestion, that it should be there in the district level or the taluk level or whatever.
A designated court at the district.
Yes,
so
yes.
That we only exclusively work on this, there will be at least something which is happening in a fast manner.
I'll do that.
Yes. Any members who want to add anything to it or you want to say? There is one comment by Mr. Vaidyanathan in the chat box which says, whereas the corporation has been issuing the reason for demise of the deceased as a respiratory problem, sudden cardio arrest, lung disaster, etc. Even such deceased person died of COVID issue.
I brought up this issue. Mr. Vaidyanathan, I think you must have heard that. Yes. See, the IRDA has told them. The government has also been issuing directions to the registering authority. You know, death certificates. You know, in many cases, death certificate is not being given. They say there is no record. You know, some bodies are disposed of. Nobody has a record of that disposal. So the insurance company has been told not to create any impediment in such claims if they come to them. They have been told how much of it, like I said, how much of it they will implement, we have to hazard a guess. Like I said, for motor accidents claim, you know, where the sole earning member has lost his life, the earning has gone. You have to wait for 10, 15 years to get that claim settled by a court. They'll never settle it straight now. So we only hope and keep our fingers crossed that this is taken with respiratory disease. Like I said, they write respiratory disease. That they have to correct the records and So these, like I said, these commissions, the child welfare of the police officers will have to take charge and make sure that these corrections are made. How does the child go and do it? Or she will have no idea. So these are the bigger problems of insurance companies, of banks, even in banks. How do you get your name substituted? Who's going to get the death certificate? Who are the successors? All this is very difficult question. You're running through a very difficult time, right?
Yes.
This also we'll have to tell the. He's noted that in his article.
Yes.
And for the court.
Mr. D. Srinivasan said, thanks for a good session, sir. We also learned about new category called orphan parents.
Yes, I was thinking of addressing that with us, preparing the note, because this is also, as a society, you know, like I said, also we don't have a social security system. We need some kind of, you know, systems in place to address different segments of society.
Yes.
And all this money, I don't know, it sounds political. All this money being spent on so much of government ad and this thing expenditure can actually be diverted. I'm happy that the PM Cares Fund is now being utilized for some of these, because it was all obscure. Till last year, we had no idea of what the fund was being used for. Is it a private trust? Was it was it auditable under the Indian Audit Service? Nobody knew, but at least they are coming out with some kind of formula of utilization of this money. Total amount of money also nobody knows. But if they are saying that this 10 lakhs, 18 lakhs was given to such children, we hope for the best. Let us see if the money is being utilized properly. So the state level also, they have that kind of funds. The Chief Minister Relief Fund and this, that, and that. Every state has this.
And we have our participant Lalita who want to just have a word with us.
Yeah, I'm the member of Child Welfare Committee, North Zone, Chennai. So as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, what we are doing as of now is we have, as you said, that we have given the phone numbers of all the chairpersons of the Child Welfare Committees pertaining to Chennai, and also the numbers of the district collectors, wherein we are receiving calls and we are documenting everything in terms of the children who are in need of care and protection and who are orphan as of now. We have both the details of single parent as well as the children who have lost both the parents. We are now in the process of consolidating, and till now the Tamil Nadu government has not issued any guidelines regarding how they are going to proceed about in terms of dispersing the money and all. The irony is even the single parent are asking about the immediate cash relief to be deposited in their account rather than focusing on the education of the child or for the other rehabilitation pertaining to the child. This is what the situation, and we are in terms of working out. As you said, that it's far easy to approach the child welfare committees rather than the courts.
Yes,
so as of now, the courts have not been established. The designated courts have not been established as suggested by our senior advocate Om Prakash. So far as concerned, the child welfare committees, the district child protection officers, and the district administration and the district social welfare department, all the four are working together in terms of collecting details of the orphan children. This is the plight of Tamil Nadu as of now, sir.
Yes. Now I'll tell you something. Since you've touched the topic of Tamil Nadu, I'll just give you an extract from their affidavit so that you are also aware of what is being filed.
Yes, if possible, if you can share the affidavit that has been given by MC. I understand.
I'm getting close to 60 now. I'm not all that computer savvy. I can show that affidavit. I can send it to Mr. Prakash.
Yes,
I'll send it to him.
Yes,
no,
if possible, we will share it in the WhatsApp.
So this is a collation of their affidavit. It's not yet finalized. What I'll do is let me wait for Gaurav to finalize it. Once I get it in black and white, because he'll have to give it to court.
Yes, of course, I understand.
No, I'll just give you a brief of, since you've touched the topic. What the Tamil Nadu government says, they will give 3 lakhs lump sum amount to the parent who have lost his spouse.
Yes.
Then 3,000 per child per month will be given to the child till age of 18.
Yes, yes.
If the surviving parent is widow, she will get 1,500 per month as widow pension.
Yeah.
The child will be given admission if not already admitted in a government school. No, what I was on is this paragraph. The district task force should identify the properties of the child who has lost both parents and take steps to preserve. This is what I was saying. Preserve the property.
Yes, this suggestion has
issue that you have to answer.
Yeah. Being an advocate, I have given the suggestion to the district administration and they have included that. But as of now, there is no GO or any other thing issued by the Tamil Nadu government. It has now just given a press release and all. I don't know what affidavit they are filing before the Supreme Court. But this is for
all these government, they want the Supreme Court to say something, only then they will implement. This is all suggestions. You know, they take the cover of the court, like they want the stamp of imprimatur from the court to say that now the court has said we'll do it.
Yes, of course. They want one goat to go first and then they'll follow that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
But the intention from this affidavit seems correct. Both Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka are almost in sync. The amounts vary,
Yes.
But they are saying that they will take care in addition to PM CARES fund. So the
Okay.
PM CARES fund will also have to be taken care by the district task force.
Yeah, true, sir. Yes, by all means. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Sir, one of our participants, Mr. K. Ravi Kumar, advocate, has made a request in the chat box. He says that at every district level, there is a district legal services authority. Their assistance can be taken for immediate requirement to monitor at district level and report to the state legal services authority, which in turn will be monitored by the High Court at the state level. This request can probably be placed before the court.
Yes, that it can be given to Shri Lalita ji. But then what is happening again? Legal Services Committee would again, be one more body. So therefore, the district task force under the Act would be better placed to collate and implement. You get my point? This is a good thought. So the Legal Service Authority also are busy with, if there's some legality involved, obviously they will get involved. But to have too many bodies getting involved again creates a lot of confusion. So there can be a nodal agency, one nodal agency who will monitor and take care at the district level or the state level, to say whether everything is being implemented, with the money, that last mile connectivity is actually being reached insofar as the money, mostly money is concerned, and whether properties are retrieved. That is, the retrieving of property is very essential for such children. Their own property should not go waste. So therefore, all those succession certificate, etc., should be done post-haste by the government authorities.
Sir, Mr. K. Murthy, advocate, has a suggestion.
Yes.
He says, like in the IBC, where insolvency professionals, interim resolution professionals are all being considered, this commission may also have professionals who will be in charge of the child till the adoption is completed.
Yeah, these are workings within the Act that we can do. They're free to adopt any measure. According to me, they're not limited by the concept. Once a committee is formed, the commission will take care of such district level task force or state level task force to ensure to achieve the objective, all that is necessary can be done. I don't find any impediment in this Act. After this inquiry and etc. is done, then they can implement through the aid of the JG Act, through this Commission of Child Welfare Act. So it's a good suggestion which can be taken care of by the, if Lalita listening to all this, she can make track point these notes and put it to the committee head or whoever is there in the district task force.
Thank you, sir. I think we are almost coming to the end. I don't find any other messages in the chat box, or I just get one message. It was a thanks from Mr. Ravi Kumar. There is also a thanks message from Srinivas.
Oh, thank you so much.
And others for the wonderful
But
session.
this was, like I said, it more had
So to conclude,
touch your heart chords. When it was, this is not a lecture in that sense of what legally one can do, what we can do, emotionally and sentimentally for a child in distress. We call it a child in distress. And like I added, old parents in distress too. We have to expand the definition of orphans also to old parents.
and we have one more comment by Rajeshwari, advocate, which is very sensitive subject. Intricacies and nuances explained very nicely, sir. Helpless had to be helped. The benefit should go to the right person. Hope things will take shape suitably.
The preamble to the Constitution should be the guide. We, the people of India, having solemnly affirmed, we have to follow that in literal spirit. We have to stand for each other. It's like we, me, myself does not work anymore. Not after this pandemic. It's like a wartime situation. I'll just take one more minute. When the Second World War happened, Auschwitz and all these gas chambers, these concentration camps, it was unlike the modern times. Here, people have properties, people are saved, those have to be protected. There, those kids were just taken out of their homes, the homes demolished, parents killed, and the UN Human Rights Commission through the Child Welfare Committees set up committees to ensure that those kids were taken care of on a long-term basis. So such war-footing measures will also have to be taken today. It's almost like akin to a war-like. It's not a very happy situation. We do not know when it will end. We'll have so many more orphans, unfortunately. Let's hope we don't have, but I'm sure the way it is going, with medical, actually, there being no cure. Everything is done on a hypothetical basis. That administered is now to the WHO today, who says, take out all those medicines which are being administered. Remdesivir is one. That other medicine, what is called Fabiflu, is not being given anymore. There was a kind of clamor for all these, the injections, the oxygen. I mean, people are just groping in the dark. So we'll have to keep our fingers crossed and think of evolution of a better society to help each other.
Thank you
so much.
To conclude, I would just request our youngest member, Ritika, to have a few words as a summary of your things.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for the very reflective session on the morbid situation pervading in the country. In this session, you walked us through the different complex scenarios that could occur as an outcome of the challenges that often children face, including healthcare, education, and trafficking. You'd also discussed the logistical issues in identifying the children and finding out the best means to protect them. We saw in today's session the different laws that are already existing to protect orphan children, including the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, Guardians and Wards Act, Juvenile Justice Act, and along with the constitutional protection through Article 39 and Article 21. Foster care, as Sir had mentioned, is a very underutilized system in our country. I think considering the PM scheme and the other state schemes that different states are bringing up, foster system might see an increase in our country. However, there's also a possibility that foster parents may misuse the funds given through the state schemes. Just similar to what Ms. Lalita had mentioned earlier, where parents were using the funds for other personal uses. Although if there is a proper monitoring of the child's growth progress, then the child can be protected and the foster system can eventually be a great success. That being said, I would like to thank our speaker for taking some time out of his schedule to address us today and the organizers for scheduling this session. I also thank all the participants who joined us this evening. Wishing you all a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Before there is one final comment by one of our participants, Santosh Matthew. He says, whenever disbursement of relief funds are, unfortunately, our country fares very poorly on the honesty index, whereby a relief fund or a compensation, by the time it actually reaches the actual beneficiary, the funds are a mere trickle of the actual disbursement. My sincere request is that when good rules are framed, kindly ensure to incorporate rules for financial governance also.
That's what I said. Some kind of monitoring has to be there. Till 18 or till they reach college. So those things will have to be taken care of. It's not, even for retrieved properties. I mean, who takes care of them? The children will not know how to take care of the properties. So those guardians will have to be monitored. Like I said, they have to report back to the court every time. This is what it is. This is what I have retrieved. This is what is being utilized for the welfare and well-being and the schooling or whatever, college or whatever, for their monthly upkeep. You know, these things will have to be done on a war footing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.